So you want to run a 1911 for SHTF? Well, I probably wouldn't. I think there's a lot of better choices out there. But maybe you're in love with the 1911, maybe it's the only handgun you have, maybe there's some nostalgia to it. Whatever it is that makes you make that decision, I guess doesn't matter anymore, because this is what you're doing for SHTF. So there are some things you should consider when it comes to running a 1911 for SHTF to make sure that you're going to be up and running for as long as possible during that long-term disaster scenario that we all like to prepare for. Now, the biggest thing with 1911s is going to be reliability. Reliability is huge, and there's some things you can do to try to ensure the best level of reliability you can accomplish in a 1911. Right here I have a Kimber NRA Protector 45 ACP. Now this NRA Protector was their Friends of NRA special edition. There was only so many units created, but it's basically one of their full-size Aegis models with a couple of differences that aren't that important. At the end of the day, it's a full-size 5-inch barreled 1911 chambered in God's caliber 45 ACP. And before we get started, we have to mention that this firearm has won 2 world wars. 45 ACP is the only caliber you should have it in, and if it doesn't have a 5-inch barrel, it's not a real 1911. Okay, now that I got all those things out of the way that you were going to tell me, we can start talking about some more realistic things that actually matter when it comes to this firearm, okay? Now, first and foremost, yes, this is unloaded and safe, we're gonna be okay, all right? But I just have to make sure everybody knows that, because there's a lot of people out there who get really freaked out by it for some reason. Either way, reliability is huge. So what can you do to make your 1911 a little bit more reliable? Well, first and foremost, you can get a custom build from one of the higher end custom manufacturers out there. These hand-built, highly polished, highly well fit and tuned 1911s are more likely to have a better reliability factor to them than a production model. However, they're very expensive, at least $2,500 and above. And at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're looking for a tactical or a combat model. You don't necessarily want a competition model, because the tolerances are so tight that they won't allow for anything like sand or dirt or water or anything else to get into the mechanism and then have it still reliably function. This is something to consider. So if you're going to get a super high-end, super clean 1911, which are a lot of manufacturers for Les Baer, Nighthawk Customs, Wilson Combat, either way, make sure you're getting something that's made to do the job you want it to do. And a competition model generally isn't made for long-term SHTF durability. You'd be looking for something in the combat or tactical realm, because the tolerances are a little looser, which allows for more play. And in case you're new to firearms or new to 1911s in general, tolerances basically means the fitment is so tight that if 1 grain of dirt gets in there, it won't work properly, okay? So the looser the tolerance is, the more abuse the firearm can take in the sense of environmental factors, but at the same time it loses accuracy because of those tolerances. So that's why competition models might not be exactly what you're looking for. Now, if you are going to go production model, okay, if there is a reason for you to do that in the sense of budget, which totally makes sense, which is why a lot of people would be running a 1911, because they can only afford 1 handgun and they just want to make sure it's a 1911. They're not exactly sure what else to do though, okay? So if you're going to get a production run gun, production run will be something from like Smith & Wesson, Springfield, Kimber, along those lines, basically Colt, right? All of those manufacturers make great 1911s, but if you want one that's gonna really run reliably, you wanna get one of their higher end, more top tier models. Don't get a base model 1911 A1 government style 1911. It'd be better to get something like a loaded, or when it comes to a Kimber, like a TLE, or maybe if it comes to like a Colt, maybe a Gold Cup, something like that. Anything that's a little bit more high end, a little bit more tuned, and has a little bit of the additional features you might want. Something like Novak cut sights, which allow you to then get something like night sights installed because they have a dovetail and they're removable rather than like the 1911 A1 style sights. All those things could be a benefit to you for an SHTF firearm, and at the same time, the reliability factor will be slightly better because a little bit more tuning has gone into the process of building those firearms, okay? So just my 2 cents, don't go with the base model. Kimber is one of those manufacturers where if you get the base model, you're definitely gonna get what you pay for. But if you get a nicer Kimber, they generally work pretty well. Now, you can definitely do yourself right by starting off with a brand like Springfield or something like that, because they generally put out good production model 1911s on the budget line, and at the same time still give you some of the features you're looking for. So these are just things to consider, okay? Another thing you want to consider, that's going to definitely affect reliability is your magazines. Now look, I was out shooting the 1911, kind of just getting some B-roll and also enjoying myself. One of the things I ran into was the magazines causing malfunctions on reload. And the reason behind that is because the magazines have a habit of just not working properly. So if there is one company that makes good 1911 magazines, that's going to be Wilson Combat. The magazines I was running today are Kimber magazines. I have the Kimber standard, just like USGI style magazines, which hold 8 rounds instead of 7. And then I also have the Kimber TAC Pro magazines, which is what you saw malfunctioning today in the video. And those generally work totally fine. It's just that they were hanging up on the reload just from probably a little bit of me and a little bit of them having a nosedive in the sense of the top round. So these are issues that you can fix by buying high quality magazines from a high quality manufacturer. And I would say the internet basic consensus is that Wilson Combat makes the best 1911 magazines out there. So if you're going to run a 1911, you should probably be running Wilson Combat magazines. Now, this is also going to get into the whole carrying a 1911, right? So carrying a 1911 outside the waistband is pretty nice. You can have a nice looking setup. You got the leather. All I run on mine right now is Galco leather, which looks great because it's a 1911 and it deserves leather. And at the same time, you can go to your barbecue and be looking pretty fly with your really expensive piece and all that good stuff. But the thing about that is that yes, you can go fully tactical with a 1911 as well. There's a lot of tactical models, there's tactical holsters, tactical belt setups, so you can go the full 9 yards outside the waistband. But if you're running a full-size 1911, it can be a little difficult to conceal carry. Now, concealed carry matters because I think in SHTF, being able to be gray man and hiding the fact that you're armed might be more handy and more often used than having a rifle and full kit and all that other stuff. But a 1911 can be trickier to carry. So I carry mine in a crossbreed Super Tuck holster. It's actually the most comfortable holster I've found for CCWing a 1911 in the full-size variety. Now this particular model does have the bobtail or the round heel, which is really nice for carry because basically it makes it not print as much on that sharp angled grip that you usually see on a full-size 1911. But in the Super Tuck holster from Crossbreed, it carries very well. It distributes the weight really nicely. And if you're gonna get one, make sure you get the combat cut because it definitely makes a difference. The combat cut is basically allowing your hand to get a little bit of a better grip on the grip for the draw. And then I carry the extra magazine in the Accomplice magazine carrier, which is another Crossbreed product, which is hybrid. And what's nice about the hybrid is it's leather and Kydex because let's be honest, 1911s deserve leather. And just so everybody knows, I'm not affiliated with Crossbreed. I just really like their holsters for certain things, and especially for full-size 1911s, I haven't found anything more comfortable that makes it easier to carry this big hunk of metal, okay? Now, the other thing to keep in mind when it comes to reliability is going to be the extractor. It's one of the parts that really makes a difference on a 1911 operating reliably. So make sure that you have a quality extractor or extra extractors available to you for your 1911 if need be. And also keep in mind that there are certain models that have external extractors versus internal extractors, and there are some issues with those external extractors. So these are things you want to research and really understand when you're going to purchase a 1911, or if you already have one, be aware that that's where some hiccups can come into play, and that certain companies make extractors that have basically built in the features that allow them to work flawlessly without issues. So those are things you should definitely research as well if you plan on running a 1911 for SHTF. And in case you don't know, the extractor is what pulls the empty case out of the chamber once you fire a round. The other thing that's really going to matter with a 1911 is ammunition selection. 1911s are finicky. A lot of them are hand fit, they're hand polished. There's a lot of different parts that have to be fit together just right for it to work properly. It's a muscle car compared to a Honda Civic, right? It has a lot of soul, but it needs a lot of maintenance and care to work properly. And because of that, some 1911s just don't like some ammo. It's just part of the deal when it comes to 1911s. So make sure you test any ammo you plan on using or carrying in your 1911 before relying on it, because there's a lot of chances that it might not work properly, okay? And now, generally your 230 grain full metal jacket ball ammo is going to work well in your 1911 because that's what the gun was designed to shoot. Anything that differentiates from that in the sense of hollow points or other types of bullets might not work properly. And I definitely have had hang-ups with this 1911 as well as every other one that I've owned or shot when it comes to switching up the ammo and just trying stuff out. They just don't like everything. So make sure you test and test and test when it comes to ammo to ensure that reliability is there. Keep in mind though, if SHTF lasts a long time and things fall apart and full metal jackets are all you have left? Well, it is true that 45 ACP full metal jackets are going to do more damage than 9mm full metal jackets. So keep that in mind for anybody who wants to argue about 9 versus 45. That might be one of the winning arguments when it comes to those two rounds. If you only have full metal jackets, the bigger the better, right? Everything else goes out the window when you talk about modern bullet design and technology, but hey, we're not talking about that. We're talking about 1911s for SHTF. Now, one thing I want to mention is that it's a great gun. I love 1911s. You should definitely have one in your collection if you're a gun enthusiast. It's just part of the deal. It's a soulful thing to own, and often it's an heirloom piece that you can pass down to your family for generations, and it's just a great gun to be remembered by. But at the same time, there are a lot of better options out there these days when it comes to reliable firearms that are durable and put rounds on target easily and probably more quickly without the hiccups of the 1911. And most of them have double stack magazines that can hold anywhere from 13 to 15 to 17 to 21 rounds versus the 1911 generally carrying 7 or 8 rounds in the magazine, with extended magazines holding 10, but then you have a giant lip that sticks out of the bottom of the grip, making the gun even that much more large than it already is. Considerations that have to be made, but I wanted to make this video because I love 1911s, and I know a lot of you are probably considering a 1911 for SHTF pistol, and I thought this might help you make that decision or get at least some information for how to ensure that reliability and ensure that that gun's going to keep you alive during that time. Let me know in the comments below everything you disagree with. Let me know in the comments below why you chose a 1911 for SHTF, and besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.